In the ages past, the world went through the Golden, the Silver, and the Bronze Ages. It's now the Iron Age, the Age of Man. In the village of Gael, Riannon, an oracle, is apprehended by High Priest Dark of the Holy Empire. He demands to know the location of the villagers, but she simply says they are away. Her brother, Arthur, known as Gael's first warrior, is away on a hunting party in the forest, and no help will arrive for her. Dark reveals that he requires her blood as a descendant of the elf king Pwyll to revive the demon king to bring about a new age, with him as a king. When she learns of his aim, she prepares to kill herself with a concealed arrowhead, but he brings forth 2 children and threatens to kill them if she does not obey. Left with no choice, Riannon is forced to comply. She gives her true elven name and allows herself to be brainwashed and led to a cave. Arthur arrives far too late, and after being informed by the 2 children, he sets out with a detachment of soldiers to rescue his sister, while Dark prepares the revival process of the demon king Arawn. After smashing the soldiers guarding the entrance, Arthur fights his way through the tomb, while Dark bargains with the Arawn, offering Ryan's life to bring about the destruction of the Iron Age. Arthur finally arrives at the main chamber. He shouts in vain at his sister as Arawn approaches his sacrifice. Arthur threatens Dark to release his sister, but he reminds him that he knows her true name, and any damage that befalls him will happen to Riannon. Arthur is unable to make a move, but deep in Ryan's consciousness, Arawn speaks to her. She asks him to apologize on her behalf to Arthur and to tell him to escape. Arawn cries tears of blood at her selfishness, which surprises Riannon. Arawn breaks Dark's control over her and she awakens. He then stabs Dark, disgusted at the delusions of grandeur. Arthur then points his sword at Arawn, despite Riannon explaining that it was he who saved her. Arthur pushes her aside and attacks the Demon King, who effortlessly handles the first warrior of Gael. Riannon comes to Arawn's aid and wraps her scarf around him, signaling that he is chosen to be her husband and the new chieftain of Gael. Arthur is confused and asks his sister to reconsider, as he would never treat Arawn as the chieftain. Before they can argue further, they're soon beset by revived skeletons, and Arthur is forced to cooperate with Arawn to fight through the tomb. They encounter Ogam, a mutual acquaintance of Arawn and Arthur. With his help, they traverse a hidden passage, but they encounter another wave of skeletons. Arawn learns that due to the incomplete resurrection, his body is still that of immortals. Upon emerging from the cave, they reunite with Ladu and his men. They return to Gael, where Arthur stages a revolt against the Holy Empire in Albion. Elsewhere, Dakimus reports to Gaius about Gael's revolt due to their chieftain's daughter being kidnapped for the attempted revival of Arawn. Gaius reacts with disdain towards Dark's actions, but decides that the revolt must be put down. While Arawn observes his festivities, he's attacked by another Gaelite, Morgan. He effortlessly subdues her, and she demands that she be beheaded in shame. Arthur and Riannon intervene, and Morgan gives them the news that she failed in securing their transport ships, and they have been taken by the Empire. He offers his head in penance, but Arawn, tired of their insistence on following the Covenant, suggests he take Morgan as his property instead of killing anyone, and she gleefully agrees. They arrive at the port, and Ogam is tasked to recapture the vessels, while Arawn and the others fight their way to open the floodgates. They encounter Gaius, who introduces himself as the commander of the Albion expedition. Arawn instructs the others to help capture the ships while he deals with Gaius. When asked what he plans to do, Arawn remarks that he plans to take the right to rule. Gaius throws a sacred dagger at Arawn, which he manages to deflect. He boards the recaptured ship, and they sail for Albion. Gaius lets them go, having confirmed that Arawn is indeed the Demon King. Arawn suffers from a wound that refuses to heal. After Morgan and Riannon try to lick his wounds clean, Ogam intervenes and mends the wound. He warns Arawn that it was an Electrum attack, the same attack that killed him in his past life. He then explains to Arawn what has transpired through his slumber. After the war, the Albion Empire prospered for 300 years, but after its collapse with the death of Pwyll, a series of wars of succession plunged the continent into chaos. Albion is now dominated by the Holy Empire. It now dawns upon Arawn that his opponents in this age are not the elves, but humans. Later that night, Arthur challenges Arawn to a duel, but he's still outmatched. He begs Arawn to take care of his sister. The Gael tribe marches to the castle of Avalon, which was once the castle of Arawn. They arrive at the Gate of Life, and after Arthur accepts his fate to war with the Empire, Arawn opens it. They meet 2 elvish maids, Ermin and Limris, who welcome Arawn back with open arms. They learn that Arthur and Riannon are also descendants of the elven King Pwyll, but Arthur dislikes being associated with him. After a feast of roasted apples, they learn from Limris that Avalon is still populated by a small number of elves. Arthur becomes disturbed at the mention of spirits, and Riannon explains that he's obsessed with avenging his father, who was killed by a white spirit. Later, they tell Arawn to lead a hunting party in accordance with Gael law. He and Arthur enter the armory, but they are trapped by a magic circle. The merchant elf Epona, caretaker of the armory, mistakes them for intruders and is scolded heavily. After arming themselves, the Gael tribe travel to a nearby beach. Morgan blows hard into a crab flute, which summons gigantic crabs for them to hunt. They eat and drink heartily into the evening and notice Arawn go off on his own. Riannon follows him. They watch the sunset into the horizon, and Riannon shares the legend of the god Myrddin, who was punished for gifting fire to humans. Arawn reveals he knew Myrddin 1,000 years ago and tells her there is no need to pray to him, as Myrddin is already all around them. Unbeknownst to them, Gaius sails for Albion alongside a massive armada. Ogam and Arawn lament that they have neither the manpower nor the material to defend against an attack from the Empire. During a morning hunt, Arthur realizes that they are on a hunting grounds of a neighboring tribe and orders that their territory be respected. They end up having plain stew, which Morgan complains about. A wandering minstrel, Tallies, arrives and plays a song for their amusement, asking only for a few berries and nuts in exchange. As he leaves, he reveals that he's aware that they are the Gael clan and warns them that they are within the hunting grounds of the Brigantes clan. Later, Arawn and the others visit Londinium for reconnaissance. Arthur has to sternly scold Morgan after she nearly gives up their identities. After spotting a supply cache, they make plans to capture it on the outskirts of town. They force the guards to abandon the cargo and take it for themselves, but they are soon attacked by an assassin. After fending him off, Erin realizes this was all part of Gaius's plan. They inspect the cargo they captured and find it filled with useless sand. A hot-headed Arthur advocates for an immediate attack, but Arawn keeps him in line, reminding him that they do not know the full strength of Gaius's forces, and orders a retreat. The next morning they use the crab flute once more, but it instead attracts a girl that Ogam and Arawn find familiar. The girl introduces herself as Lear, and she was sent by the Seal Elf tribe to aid and congratulate Arawn in his resurrection. With her assistance, they successfully hunt the remaining crabs. Riannon has difficulty starting a fire, so Arawn gives her a seal pelt he found. After the festivities, Lear asks them to help look for a sacred gown, as without it, she will be unable to return to her homeland. When Arawn and Riannon realize they burned it, they apologize. Ogam explains that those from the Seal Elf tribe marry those who take their garments, and therefore, Arawn is now wed to Lear. She later tries to assist in the daily upkeep of Avalon, but she becomes covered in soap while doing the laundry, and later hurts the cow as she tries to milk it. She sulks at being unable to help, but Riannon and the other maids reassure her. Meanwhile, the overconfident Captain Bobulks, upon finding the carts the Gael clan stole, orders his second-in-command, Octavia, to muster the troops for a surprise attack. Despite her misgivings, she has no choice but to obey. Reports of the Imperial troops reach Avalon, and they begin formulating a counterattack. They plan an ambush in the forest, and using a felled tree to cut off their retreat, the Gael tribe descends on the Imperial troops, slaughtering them in droves. Bobulks is stunned by the ferocity of the attack and is unable to issue any commands. Octavia orders the retreat herself. A panic-stricken Bobulks cuts the bridge before all his troops have crossed. His mercilessness is noted by the Gael tribe and leads Octavia to report this incident to her superiors, later incurring Bobulks' wrath. Bored at the same old morning routine, Morgan is informed by Limris of a tournament in Londinium. Arawn opposes the idea, but Ogam manages to convince him. The streets are lively and filled with merchants. Morgan, hoping to find something called the Red Branch, asks Epona to keep a lookout for her. They enter the Colosseum and find a mine elf facing off against an ogre. When they wonder what an elf is doing out in the open, Ogam explains that due to a toxin known as gravitas, the forests have become inhospitable to elves. The elf defeats the ogre, but is chased out by the guards. The elf, Rathi, encounters Arawn and Riannon, but he does not recognize that Arawn is the Demon King. He explains that he entered to win a precious metal called Sylvanus steel. He offers his services in maintaining kitchenware, but Arawn insists that he make weapons instead. Mayor Creon, the sponsor of the tournament, announces a grudge match between Bobulks and Octavia. She effortlessly outclasses Bobulks, impressing the Gael tribesmen that are watching. Erin remarks that her fighting style is superb. Bobulks calls reinforcements, which should be highly illegal, but Creon allows it. Morgan, unable to watch her fight alone, jumps down and assists her. Together they take out the charioteers, earning each other's mutual respect. They embarrass Bobulks, and Morgan commends Octavia on her fighting ability. Morgan mistakenly mentions that they are Gael tribesmen, but Octavia agrees to keep it a secret. As they return to Avalon, they find that Rathi has followed them, and after finally realizing Arawn is the Demon King reawakened, he humbly offers his services as a smithy. Meanwhile, another detachment of Imperial soldiers begins their attack. Gaius demands reinforcements to crush the Gael tribe, but the Senate is slow to react. Instead, they send an agent, Delator, to contact Arawn. Gaius encounters Lydia, the commander of the Labalm battalion. She taunts his inability to smash the Gael tribe and how she's being sent to attack them instead. In Avalon, the soldiers work to reinforce their defensive lines. Arawn finds Limrys cradling a sleeping Emerus. He finds a picture book Emerus had drawn for the children, portraying Arawn and Puil's exploits in their youth. Although Arawn is troubled at being reminded of his past, alongside the loss of his old sword, Limrys reassures him that they are both happy to see him again. Later, Arthur reports that the enemies have arrived at their shores earlier than anticipated. Fearing Avalon will soon be discovered, Arthur advocates an immediate counterattack. Ogam warns them that they face the fearsome Labalm soldiers, a special police force under the Empire. Arthur plans another ambush in the forest, but their trap is seen through, and Arawn senses they are no common enemy. The pair reveal themselves, and Lydia explains her orders to expel them. Arthur foolishly orders a frontal assault, not knowing that the enemy he faces are well-trained and organized. Soon their forces are pushed back. Lear, Morgan, Rathi, and Arthur himself are easily routed. They manage to scamper back to Avalon with Ogam's help, and Arthur is distraught at the casualties their forces sustained. He blames himself for underestimating the enemy and slips into depression, but Arawn chastises him for giving up so easily and tells him to focus on their next move. Rathi speaks up and reveals he has a plan. Meanwhile, Octavia inspects a crate filled with dead bodies. Horrified, she's attacked from behind and knocked unconscious by Imperial soldiers. Octavia awakens, bound, and sees Lydia standing over her, vengeful over her loss to her during a duel in the past. Although she wishes to humiliate Octavia, she's forced to stay her hand as the Senate has ordered Octavia's arrest. Meanwhile, the Gael tribe burrow underground with Rathi's help. They mistakenly emerge at the outskirts of the enemy base, but they decide to make do. Arthur exercises admirable self-control, showing that he has matured from previous days' attacks. While the Gael clan raids the storehouses, Arawn finds dead bodies packed inside the crates and asks Ogam to investigate. Arawn later finds Octavia inside a crate, whom he recognizes from the earlier battle. He asks Arthur what the Gael clan does with prisoners, and he promptly replies that though they ordinarily take none, they would shrink their head. They are then alerted that their infiltration has been discovered. They fight their way through the guards and set fire to their base. Lydia, who earlier left, sees her base up in flames. She encounters the fleeing Arthur and Arwen, who remark that they have paid her back for the other day. Lydia curses the Gael tribe and admits defeat. As they return and celebrate with their spoils, Ogam reports that the crates in the boxes are filled with not just Imperial soldiers, but civilians and barbarians as well, and they mull over the purpose the Empire has for shipping corpses. Arawn later returns to the storehouse and finds Octavia there, who demands that he fight her to the death. During their duel, Arawn notices she's already injured and refuses to fight any longer. He scolds her for throwing away her life so pointlessly. Revealing herself to be the Demon King, he tells her he has no plans to torture her. She regrets they did not meet on the battlefield and collapses from her wounds. Octavia has joined the ranks of the Gael and have begun tutoring two children, Conal and Elil. Both her and Morgan sense they are being watched. Lydia receives a report that her scouts have found Avalon, and she orders an immediate mobilization. Meanwhile, suspicions begin to fall on Octavia due to reports of her meeting with Imperial spies. Morgan refuses to believe the reports and decides to investigate. That night, she follows Octavia into the forest and finds that the rumors are true. The next day, she tries to stop Octavia from taking the children into the forest, but she cannot bring herself to face the truth. Octavia warns the kids not to venture into the forest without a guardian. When Ermin senses the disappearance of insect chirps in the forest, Arawn is alerted that the Labalm troops are camped there and orders his troops to mobilize. Against Octavia's warnings, the children venture into the forest, but Elil is captured, and Conal is told to bring Octavia to the forest alone. Octavia leaves to meet Lydia, but Morgan confronts her. Although conflicted, she decides to trust her. They meet Lydia, who recounts how she was disgraced at their last duel when Octavia failed to finish her off. Suddenly, Morgan rescues Elil and brings her to safety. Within the woods, the Gael tribe is waiting and ready, and assault the Labalm forces with improved tactics, crushing them. Octavia duels Lydia, and they are filled with their memories of their time together in the army. She reveals that it was Lydia, not her, who failed to deliver the finishing blow. Lydia is in disbelief, and the two clash a final time. Octavia emerges victorious, and as Lydia dies, she remarks that the two of them were perfect swordswomen, and Octavia agrees. She cradles the dead Lydia in her arms, and knowing that they loved each other, cries out that neither wanted the other dead. Gaius finds flowers left on the shallow graves of Imperial soldiers. He finds Riannon hidden in the trees and captures her. News of her disappearance enrages Arthur, who wants to set out at once, but Arawn calms him down and retires to his room to meditate. Ogam explains that the two share a special bond that cannot be broken until death. Meanwhile, Talys is told by Gaius to keep a watchful eye on the troops. Riannon is treated well by her captors, but only because they were ordered to. This changes when she heals an injured soldier and improves their food situation, and she becomes well-liked amongst the soldiers. Gaius then brings her to a nearby military exercise as a show of force, while Arawn and the others set out to rescue her. Riannon and Gaius later debate on diplomacy between their nations. While Gaius advocates bringing uncivilized people under the Empire's control, Riannon prefers setting up friendship between peoples. The two are unable to see eye to eye, and though Gaius declares the Gael tribe's days are numbered, Riannon defiantly remarks that they will not be defeated. She later meets Talys in the mess hall, where he remarks that she is kind and feels more like an elf than a human. Suddenly, she hears Arawn's voice in her head, and she is led out from Gaius's base and into the forest. A sentry yells at her to stop, but when his warnings are unheeded, he lets loose an arrow. Gaius is relieved when he finds that the arrow hit Talys instead, and decides to let Riannon go. As she is reunited with her tribe, Gaius remarks the true enemy is not Gael, but their hope. With knowledge of Gaius' troop formations, Arawn and the others now expect him to launch a full-scale assault on Avalon. Without any allies, they cannot hope to put up a fight. Using Morgan's idea, Arawn suggests contacting the Brigantes clan for assistance. Ogam reveals that the Gael clan was once part of Brigantes. Arawn later finds Riannon uneasy over her connection to the Morning Star. Arawn reassures her that fear and uneasiness is a normal thing, and she should trust her inner voice. The next day, the Gael clan travels to the Elven Woods, the home territory of the Brigantes. They're surrounded and are surprised to find Talys, who is revealed to be a Brigantes clansman. Arawn demands to see the chieftain, but Talys reveals there is no chieftain, and due to a prophecy of death over whoever takes over, none have dared take up the mantle. Arthur expresses his disdain for Talys' disregard for duty, but Arawn suggests they each send an agreed-upon representative. Arthur volunteers, and Talys agrees to meet him in a duel. Arthur is hesitant to fight an injured man, but Arawn insists that he kill him. Arthur disappears for a few moments, then returns to duel with Talys. The others observe that Arthur appears to be fighting strangely. The truth is revealed when Talys disarms him. Arthur had dislocated his own shoulder to make it a fair fight. Talys is initially enraged, but the honorable act earns him the respect of the Brigantes clan. The duel is considered finished for now, while Morgan and the others surround Arthur to fix his arm, with painful results. Meanwhile, Gaius receives news of Talys' deception and is incensed that the bard is playing to appease both them and the Gael tribe.